I was the kid who managed the heating.
Kid? You were only a kid?
And I was the one who took out the ashes every Saturday from the coal fire.
Is that what you do on Saturday night?
And in those days, of course, you had a furnace with a cold stoked furnace, and somebody had to be there with a shovel. It wasn't an automatic feed. Someone had to be there with a shovel to feed the furnace several times a day, and to bank it in the evening for overnight. And I was that guy who did that for the family.
But did you feel good?
Oh yeah, but I want to point out that Milton didn't do it. Ed didn't do it.
Oh, I thought you meant knitting.
And
Right, I was too small.
it was keeping the family warm in cold New England winters was what kept the family together.
Exactly.
Have they ever properly
What kept
thanked
the
you?
family together.
I knew someone was responsible.
Let's have our cocktail
It was a
time.
serious response.
Right.
I guess that's my favorite. I guess that's my favorite family story. I got it. He did have boxing gloves. It's true. I was very patient. Finally, I just dusted him off a little bit. The kid was easily deterred. And that's the end of that.
Tell me about your two sisters here. What were they like?
What were they like?
Yeah.
What are they like?
Yeah, what are they? But as little kids.
As little kids?
Yeah.
Well, they were tolerable. They were tolerable. I was so much older than they, I didn't pay much attention to them. Not true, not true. Janice didn't remark that she was the baby in the family, so she got a lot of special attention. Midge was sort of afflicted with middle-itis, as I was.
I was what?
Afflicted with middle-itis.
The two
Two middle kids.
Okay, whatever you said, whatever
But she was a very cute little girl. I have pictures in my album of us when we were 7 or 8 and 3 and 4, and I was a good, dutiful little brother taking her by the hand, and
big brother.
older, big brother. That's right. And at that tender age, she had great confidence and respect for me, but it disappeared over time. Right? Ruth? She's a...
She's not even a Sims. Why are you about?
Tell us about your career, Al.
No. I want to say that I had a blind date in Washington, D.C. in 1940, and it was the most memorable thing that ever happened to me.
And who was it?
Her name was Darcy Jones. Now you've heard that we're about to celebrate our 50th, and we have had, I think, 50 very good years. And I'm serious when what? Ruth Bodman Lyserson was the girl I met. And we went to Napoleon's, where we had some dessert. And it was actually about 2 weeks after I had this blind date that I called her up for a second date. And there she was all these 2 weeks, chewing her fingernails and waiting by the telephone.
Oh, what a bunch of malarkey. Oh.
But,
Who set you two up on the blind date?
well, when I was in graduate school at Syracuse University, I had a couple of friends who were graduates of Oberlin. One of them in particular, Bill Smith, was my roommate in Syracuse, and turned out that he and I both went to Washington after we finished up with Syracuse. And I had gone with him and his wife, Jay Smith, to a beach in New Jersey, or off the Maryland coast. And on the way back, they said, "We know someone we think you should meet." And I was seated in the back of a Chrysler convertible, but it was one of those jump seats in back that you open up. They no longer make cars like that. Rumble seat. And
That's before my time.
I was in a bathing suit, so I slipped out of my bathing suit and into some slacks, and in we went to the Lyserson residence at 3210 34th Street. And I met Ruth. That's how it happened.
You want to tell me about your children?
Well, I think you've heard about them from Ruth. You've heard about the three who are now alive. We had a fourth, Jody, who died in 1987 of cancer, and she was our third child out of the four we had. Our child who was born in Germany while we lived in Germany, in Berlin. And Jody was born there, and subsequently she went to the University of Michigan and got a degree from the University of Washington in the state of Washington, and had a career and a marriage in Washington. So that's the only one of our children you haven't heard of. What else would you like to know?
How about your career?
Yeah.
Who's the interviewer here?
I think I've got a new assistant here. He's retired. I can hire him.
Well, let me do the career bit then in about 5 sentences.
Everybody always asks me, I say, gee, I don't know what Al did. Too long a title.
I started my career as a government servant in Washington, D.C. with the Social Security Board. I helped set up the old age and survivors insurance records and system. And then the war came, and I went to the War Production Board, where I was assistant to several in succession of the vice chairman of the War Production Board. And then I was drafted and got into the Signal Corps, I went through officer candidate school, became a Signal Corps lieutenant, eventually ended up in Germany as a military government officer. Later, geez, I was going to do this in 5 sentences. Later, went back to Germany, recruited by the Budget Bureau to help General Clay, who had succeeded General Eisenhower as both the military commander and military governor of Germany. And a team of 5 or 6 of us went to Germany to help him get his new commands organized in the way he wanted them organized. I stayed on in Germany through 1950. The State Department took over. In 1949, I stayed over to help the State Department make a transition. And then I worked in the State Department for 3 years, was it? 2 years? 3 years. Before I went up to, I went up to New York to become vice president of the Institute of International Education. Then in 1961, I went back to Washington to help organize the Peace Corps at the request of one Sergeant Shriver. And then I went with the College Board, and I retired from the College Board in 1981.
Did you write any Kennedy speeches?
No. I wrote speeches for other people, but not Kennedy.
Oh, I told everybody you did.
It's a good story.
Shouldn't have asked.
No.
What's retirement like?
It's been very good. We've traveled quite a bit. We've done the things we want to do. I'll Ruth is busy all the time. She never retires. She's busy from morning till night virtually. She's having been mayor, first selectman or mayor of Greenwich. She was the first woman mayor of Greenwich and the first Democrat in that highly Republican town in 72 years. She was elected in 1979 and served 77 and served for 2 terms that took her through in 1981. And since that time, 1981 was the year I retired from the college board, she's been as busy or busier than ever, founding banks in Connecticut, helping direct the metropolitan regional planning organization. She's the chairman of a housing corporation. This is about me, but really about Ruth, which she wouldn't say.
Good, we'll give you all the time. As long as it's about Ruth.
I've been less active, but I've been chairman for many years of the an organization called Amid East in Washington, which operates throughout the Middle East in educational exchanges and technical training. I'm a member of a couple of foundation boards, one in New York, one in Greenwich. I do occasional op-eds for newspapers. And most recently, I've been carpentering. I've been building decks around my house. And that's right, Ruth and I have over the years developed into good house painters.
Ooh, Albert?
Yes.
He's a very interesting gentleman. And amazingly enough, I've been married to him almost 50 years next month. Next month, we will have been married 50 years. And it's been an exciting experience.
We can hardly wait.
Okay.
Now, how many blueberry pies is this for this week so far?
Well, it's the 3rd blueberry pie,
Yeah, that's right.
the 5th pie I made,
Yeah,
2 apples.
2 apples.
Oh, yeah.
And these are blueberries we picked this morning. I picked this morning.
Yeah, I'm retired. Yeah.
Someone helped you, didn't he?
I picked 6 pounds of blueberries with John Bodman, my wife's cousin.
Is that right?
And we labored at 7:30 a.m. in the morning
How you coming on with it?
under the hot sun,
There we go, cold beer.
sweated away, brought these back for all these people to eat, which they do, with hardly a pause
I hope they appreciate it.
and with hardly a thank you, but the way they smack their lips is sufficient for me.
You never.
They're a family of gluttons from the beginning, and I don't expect anything different. That's that. Give us a little smile here, a faint smile playing over those lips is what I want. Not a big one, just a faint smile.
Right?
Right.
You walk with your hands
And
like
clenched.
this, and then
Left, right,